Mercedes have a second driver problem, or a first driver problem. Well, it's a driver problem, that's for sure. With Lewis Hamilton leaving for Ferrari at the end of the season, the Brackley-based team now has an open seat for the first time since 2021. Despite slipping from the very front of the grid over the past few seasons, the second Mercedes seat is still one of the top seats in the sport, and whoever lands that drive could be in a serious position to challenge for podiums, wins, and even a championship in the future. A lot of drivers have been rumored to be in the running for that second seat. We've heard Carlos Sainz, Max Verstappen, Kimi Antonelli, and even Logan Sargent. I'm just kidding. Sorry, Logan. But with all the focus on their second seat, how should Mercedes feel about the driver they already have, George Russell? Just a few years ago, he was Mercedes' hot young prospect, touted to be the face of the team once Lewis Hamilton moved on or retired. Now that that opportunity has arrived, there have been doubts over George's ability to be a true number one driver. Sure, we know he has speed, but we've also seen him make countless errors and mistakes since joining Formula One. As Mercedes begin to look to a future without Lewis Hamilton, it's time to ask, can Mercedes trust George Russell? After winning Formula 3 and Formula 2 championships in back-to-back years, Russell joined the Formula 1 grid in 2019 with Williams. Being a Mercedes junior driver since 2017, many in the Formula 1 world believed that Williams was simply a stepping stone for Russell before he would eventually make his way into the Mercedes seat. Despite the Williams cars being atrocious in 2019 and 2020, George repeatedly outperformed his teammate and put the car where it shouldn't be. Called up to replace Lewis Hamilton for the 2020 Sakir Grand Prix, George was on for a victory over his more experienced teammate Valtteri Bottas before a pit stop error and slow puncture relegated him to an eventual ninth place finish. Even though his first win eluded him, it was clear that it was only a matter of time before Russell found himself driving a Mercedes. 2021 saw a slightly better Williams car, allowing George to qualify even further up the grid and even score points on occasions. Standout performances included a P2 in the 2021 Belgian Grand Prix. Don't even get me started on that race, but it was still a good performance from George, and a P3 in qualifying at Russia that year. It was announced during that season that George would be driving for Mercedes the following year, and many expected big things from him immediately alongside Lewis Hamilton. Unfortunately for George, Mercedes took a downward turn right as he joined the team. However, 2022 was still a positive year for the young Brit, as he claimed his maiden win in pole position in the sport, as well as finishing higher than his teammate Lewis Hamilton in the driver's standings. There were also downsides to the year, such as a crash in qualifying at the Austrian Grand Prix, followed by a collision with Sergio Perez the next day, as well as an opening lap crash with Carlos Sainz in Austin. Overall, 2022 proved George Russell was the real deal in many fans' minds, as he finished the year fourth in the championship with 8 podiums, 1 pole in his win in Brazil. The 2023 season was a step forward for Mercedes, but saw George Russell take a slight step back. He had numerous on-track incidents that year, including contact with Max Verstappen during the Azerbaijan sprint race, crashing on his own in Canada, hitting the wall in the last lap in Singapore, and making contact again with Max Verstappen at the Las Vegas Grand Prix. He finished 8th in the driver standings, a long way off from Lewis Hamilton's third-place finish, but did help the team secure second in the constructor standings over Ferrari. George's contract was extended through 2025, and Mercedes were expected to continue to have one of the stronger driver lineups on the grid. That brings us to 2024, where Lewis Hamilton was announced to be leaving for Ferrari for the 2025 season before this year had even began. On track, George has found success compared to his more senior teammate. He leads the teammate battles in both qualifying and Grand Prix results, and we just watched him earn Mercedes' first pole position and podium of the 2024 season at the Canadian Grand Prix. Yes, I know Lewis finished third in the Chinese sprint. That is not a podium. We have to differentiate between sprints and Grand Prix, people. He sits seventh in the driver's standings, 14 points ahead of Lewis Hamilton, and seems to be returning to form. However, we did see some mistakes from Russell across the Canadian Grand Prix weekend, with many fans believing that he should have been the one to secure victory in Montreal. If Mercedes begin to have a car that can compete for wins and podiums each weekend, should George Russell be the driver the team puts their faith in? I think the answer is clearly yes. We've seen George show incredible pace throughout his entire career, and we've seen him perform in whatever car he's been given. It's not like we haven't seen young drivers have an early career riddled with mistakes before, with the likes of Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc, and even Lando Norris making numerous mistakes as they mature as drivers, and we hold those drivers in a very high regard. Even if Mercedes want to put a young talent, such as Kimi Antonelli, in that seat alongside George Russell, which I think they should, George is currently in the best position to lead that team into new regulations and maximize the results for the team as a young driver gets his feet underneath him. I can't confidently say that George Russell is a future world champion that will bring Mercedes as much success as Lewis Hamilton did, but I can say that George is one of the quickest drivers on the grid, and that Mercedes should have no problem fully backing him as their number one driver for the future. As Mercedes enter a time without Lewis Hamilton, I think their answer is clear. Yes, Mercedes can indeed trust George Russell. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed, please consider liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment. It really helps the channel grow. My name is Justin. This is the Podium Pushers YouTube channel, and we will see you in the next one.